test for trust or love. This basically is a class where we would weigh what each of us, our attitude is on the issues of forgiveness, reconciliation, second chances, and love. It is important, therefore, that by the grace of God, everyone present to pay attention and learn one or two things from this class. The first thing that I like to say is that when people betray us, when people hurt us, when it has become obvious that somebody has done something terrible to us that is almost unforgivable, almost unpardonable, we find ourselves in a position where it is either we hold on to the hurt or we forgive. The Christian thing to do will be to forgive. But do you know that there are times when you will forgive someone of a very great atrocity and the person will then do it again? And this time in a more devastating way. The English has a saying, they will say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This means if a friend, somebody I regard as a friend, somebody I regard as a loved one, somebody I regard as somebody that is a brother, that is a lover, a husband, a wife, who I expect that he or she should put my interest first in all things, decides to stab me in the back, betray my trust, pretend I did something I didn't do, or cheat on me, or steal something that I couldn't even believe ought to be stolen, because if he or she had asked me, I would have given it, or kept saying things behind my back that I now later hear that this same friend of mine is the one that has been going about saying all sorts of things about me, spoiling my name, my reputation, leveraging on our friendship to drag my name and my family in the mud, backbiting, gossiping about me. And all these things are normal human interactions that we find even within the church and within the family. Or in some cases, even they are worse. We've seen aunties that molested their nephews and nieces before. We've seen uncles that molested their nieces and nephews before. We've seen father even do things to their daughters that cannot be uttered. We've seen mothers abandon their babies, go away with another man, and then they expect that after 20 years, they will come back and the church will accept them with open arms. I'm talking about real life situation where people will have done something crazy to us that will have hurt us for many years. We've seen wives give their husband children that are biologically not for their husband. We've seen husbands bring home strange women to the wife or bring home strange children and unsettle their own wives despite all the sacrifices and the commitments. We've seen hurts that many of us are on this call who one way or the other, we have experienced hurts. We've been pained. We've suffered from heartbreak. We've suffered from abuse and betrayal of trust. And then maybe one way or the other, time flew past. We got counseling, and somebody told us, forgive him, forgive her, and let it go. And let this matter rest. And even though it was difficult, to forgive. It was tough. It was hard, even though we didn't want to. But we allowed the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and the life that Jesus has given unto us, which is a life of grace and truth. We allowed that life to speak to us, and we forgive this person. But many of us will remember that we say this often, and I'm happy that such a topic is coming up today where we will say that forgive, I can forgive, but I can never forget. In fact, some of us will say, I can forgive, but that friendship is over. There is nothing under the heaven that can make me ever want to continue to be friends with somebody that has done this much damage to me. I've had several cases of this. I've seen a school daughter who snatched the husband of her school mother. And after 10 years, while this woman had suffered alone raising her two children, the school mother was required to forgive this young lady who took away her husband. And she did. Because the issues were hard. And I told her, you have to forgive. So she forgave. And after she forgave, the school daughter left her husband for her. But then the school daughter continued to send messages. She wanted things to return to the way they used to be between them. And this woman said, never. Like, why are you still sending messages? I'm no longer your school mother. We are now both married to the same man. The fact that things didn't work out the way you wanted, and you had to leave, already showed your intention. Why then should I be your friend? But this young lady persisted. And because she persisted, the school mother had to reach out to me to say, please, we want this person not to send messages again. I don't want to offend God, but I've forgiven her, but I can never forget what has happened. So she shouldn't send me any messages again. I don't want to be her friend. And the school daughter said, please, I know what I did was wrong. I was guided by wrong people. I was given the wrong advice. I did something terrible, but if she had forgiven me, I want her to still be my sister, to still counsel me. I feel isolated. And I felt, well, both of you are married to the same husband anyway. The school mother was a legal wife, but both of you have children for the same man. And one way or the other, you will still interact. You will still, one way or the other, you still meet. Why must you do it in acrimony? Why can't you have at least a level of relationship where you can talk to each other? Of course, I know it's tough. And I will not pretend it is not. But one of them kept knocking. And so, of course, the school mother will say, okay, if I'm going to take her back, I have conditions. Number one, she must not do this. Number two, she must not do that. Number three, that is the test. That is the test that many of us would give. If I ask us here in this class, have you ever forgiven somebody who really hurt you emotionally before? Many of us will say yes. And if I ask us here, how long did it take you to trust the person again? Most of us will say a very long time. This brings us to the issue of Joseph and her brothers. Natural inclination would say that Joseph should punish her brothers very much for what they did to him. If he punished them as much as many of us would, none of us would blame him. In fact, if he took all his brothers and he sold all of them into slavery, none of us would blame him. If we put them in prison, inside the same dungeon where they put him just for 2 years, many of us will still think is teaching them a life lesson. They got off too easily, in my opinion. I'm not an advocate of unforgiveness. I forgive those who, in fact, I do not hold grudge against anyone. Uh, but I'm also an advocate of people should learn from their wrong. When people do something wrong and they don't get the opportunity to learn from their wrong, they tend to repeat it. But when they learn a lesson from what they did wrong, they tend to experience how the shoe felt in the other person's leg, and then they will be careful going forward. In the case of Joseph, all he wanted to see was if his brothers had changed. He wanted to test the level of their commitment to their father's joy, because he knew that when they sold him, they broke his father's heart. It means they didn't consider their father's feeling at all at that time. All they were thinking about was themselves and the level of hatred they had for Joseph. They never thought about their father that, if we do this thing, our father may die. Our father will not be able to bear this pain or this loss. They didn't consider their father's emotion at all. Secondly, he wanted to see if his younger brother, their stepbrother, but his own biological brother, that they came from the same mother, Benjamin. He wanted to see if they would protect him or if they wouldn't. He wanted to see if they learned anything from the way they treated him. And I think that was fair. It would have been foolish of him to just accept them back without any tests, without paying attention to the nuances and the intricacies of human behavior, and looking at their level of commitment to themselves as brothers. So Joseph, knowing that his brothers had come the first time, decided, I know, with a lot of thoughts and prayer, to test his brothers. And he did this by setting them up when they came back to Egypt to get grain. When he set them up, he wanted to see which of them would want to, how much would they defend each other? How long will they protect each other? What are they willing to do to come together, unite against a common enemy? In this case, Joseph was the one acting as the common enemy. He wanted to know, would they close ranks? Will they begin to turn against each other? Will they divide themselves according to their mothers? They are older now by 20 years. Are they still, is the youthful exuberance still there, or had they conquered it? And so Joseph put them to the test. They passed. As we will see in this class and the next class, they passed the test convincingly. Which brings me to the second thing I want to talk about, which is that with age sometimes comes wisdom. Some of the decisions some of us made when we were teenagers, given the benefit of insight now, many of us will not make the same decision again. I, for one, would say it categorically anywhere that some of the decisions I made as a teenager, in my late teens especially, in the benefit of insight, I wouldn't. There are some things that I did that right now I look at them and I tell myself, wow, if there is anything as foolish as youth or as youthful exuberance, assuming that you know all things, and oftentimes making the most silly of decisions, that that sometimes could be very, very expensive. When his brothers sold him, they did it based on the narrowness of their thinking. At that time, they only saw their father's compound, they only saw Jacob's little wealth, and they had assumed that that is the beginning and end of their life, that all they would become in life will be what their father left for them. But it was because they were not paying attention to history. Isaac was given some things by his father, but that was not how he prospered. Jacob got nothing from his father. Nothing. Didn't take a pin out of his father's house. Everything his father's house had went to strangers, and he still prospered. Even though they were 12 and from different mothers, if they were paying attention, they would have known that their glory is not dependent on their father's 3,000 cattle or 2,000 sheep. That's small compared to what God has planned for them. They didn't see that at the time. What they saw at that time was that this young boy is saying that he's going to be their father's favorite and that their father was going to make him rule over them, which they think their father can do because their father loved his mother so much, and their father considered Rachel as the love wife. And as a result of that, had always treated Rachel with preference. And that preference was extended also to Joseph as a child. So when they were growing up, they had this insecurity around the person of Joseph, thinking that their father would willy-nilly make him rule over them. It informed their decision largely. But as they grew older, 20 years later, they began to have their own challenges. Many of us will remember somebody like Judah. If you look at the book of Genesis 39 or 40, the story of Judah, his sons, Shem, and Onan was mentioned. Judah had seen life. He had lost 2 sons before the famine in Egypt. He had lost 2 sons. He had slept with his own son's wife in order to produce Zeresh and the other boy, the twins. Such experience changes people. You know, such experience, when people are young and foolish and they don't have much experience, they tend to think in a certain way. But as you grow older and you begin to have life experiences and you experience gains and losses, and you see children born, and you see young people die, and you see people with prospect fail, and people with that prospect succeed, you begin to look at life, and then with that you get knowledgeable, so that somebody who can write to me and say, I'm very sorry because when I was younger, I was a side chick. I had somebody, a man that was taking care of me. I was 19. I was stupid at the time. I just wanted to enjoy life. I want to be in big hotels. I want somebody to be spoiling me. And that was why I was with him. But now, as a wife, with my own children, when I look back, I want to write a letter to the women whose home I broke, to say sorry, to tell them that now I know better. But at that time, I was so young. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand the consequence or the implication. When I get letters like that from those who had come to know me and who the Lord has touched through the ministry and who had come to see the gospel for what it is, and they had come to the place where they've come to understand and seen that, hey, I was wrong at that time. But when I was that age, I was idealistic. I thought I was right. I was just misbehaving. I was an undergraduate. I had freedom and I didn't know what to do in my time and all that. And when I see people like that, I begin to understand the reason why age comes with wisdom. Some of us, the decisions we took 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, if we are given the same opportunity today and we had the same level of information we have now, we wouldn't take the steps we took. we would change. We will change our ways. We will change our lives. And this is one of the reasons why it is important to extend this same courtesy to other people. I was speaking with a guy once, and he said a leopard does not can never wash away its spots. People don't change. And I said, no, I beg to disagree. People change. Some of us here, we know what we used to be like, and we know what we are like now. We changed. When people come in contact with Jesus and they meet the Holy Spirit, it changes us. That's the truth. Joseph's brothers changed. They changed so much that when you read the book of Genesis to a particular place, you will see where even after their father had died, they went to meet Joseph by themselves. They prostrated. They begged. He didn't ask them to come. He didn't threaten them with anything. He had given them, he had settled them in Goshen, and he had ensured that they were given royal treatment. And yet, their conscience, they had changed. It wasn't because he gave them land. It was because they acknowledged the fact that when they were young, they were silly. If somebody has offended you, maybe an old friend, a relative, and the person has come to acknowledge that, what I did to Barabenga at that time was not good. I was in the wrong, and I was claiming right. And he got angry at the time, but he had to let it go. But today, I've come to realize that I wasn't fair to him. Let me write him a letter or send him a message. Let me say sorry. At least that will be the beginning, so that he will know that I have come to realize that I was wrong. You know? And if somebody will do that, I do not expect that tomorrow the same person will now misbehave, especially knowing that he already had the record. He or she already had the record that already spells distrust. So all the person would really have to do is act in a certain way that will make me, that will convince me that he has learned his lesson and he has changed. Some of the ministers said will bear me witness of a case that I handled maybe last year, around this time last year or 2 years ago. A young man, not a boy, he met a girl, he wanted to be with her. He didn't know how to tell her. And the girl needed a job, so he said, "Oh, come to our office. I will get you a job." But the girl went to the office. He found a way to lure her to a hotel. He raped the girl. After doing what he had to do, he began to talk about love. Like he felt after I slept with her forcefully that perhaps then she would give him an opportunity to be, how people do not think properly, who do not have God or guidance of the Holy Spirit, how they think. Just like the Bible said, the prince of Shechem raped Dinah, and then he fell in love after raping her, which was quite ironic because what she would have given willingly, you had broken her life, broken her trust, broken her heart to take. And then at that time, you now want to begin to mend fences and do what is proper, which is basically putting the cart before the horse. So this young man wanted to do that. And of course, the lady said no. The lady went to the police station. When the case got to the police station, this young man denied raping the girl, turned the table. The lady had to go home. The young man went ahead with his life, but this lady didn't forgive him. And things began to happen to this young man, things that are dangerous. So eventually, I told the lady that, okay, you came to me with this case and we've handled it. But the Holy Spirit is telling me that we should forgive this guy. If this guy will write a letter of apology to you, will you accept it? And she said, I don't know. I said, you have to forgive him. So I reached out to the young man. I said, see, I know you're in trouble now, and I know why you're in trouble. You raped one of my daughters. That was how I put it. Even though the person is my sister. You raped one of my daughters, and she reported to me. And I wanted God to show you, to teach you a lesson you will never forget. I don't know your current circumstances, but I'm very sure you are in trouble now. And the young man replied and said, oh, I've lost my job. I've lost my house. I've lost my car. In the last few months, life has been upside down. I'm willing to accept that I raped her. I will put it in writing. I want her to forgive me so that my life can be good again. And this young lady accepted. And after some time, they met again. And this time they began to talk. She trusted him again. And some of us here will say, what? No! You should never marry somebody that raped you. Never, ever. They were young. They were young. It was foolish. It was foolish. What else would they have done to show that he was willing to make amends, except she gives him a chance to make it up to her? He apologized. He wrote a letter. The girl cried. I cried. He cried. All of us wept very much. Eventually, they met again. They met another time. Then they met again. Then she realized that it wasn't the devil, really. After many months of pain, she realized it can make her laugh. It can make her smile. She realized that she really liked him. And if not for the stupidity of his action, she would have happily married him. So gradually, she changed her mind. She changed her stance. They got married. I was at their wedding a few months ago. It was one of my treasured, beautiful stories. And the key thing here was that she put his love to the test. She didn't just jump in and say, get out. Or she didn't just say, okay, come in. Or she didn't. Either way, she took her time. This time she prayed about it. This time she involved the Holy Spirit. This time but hey, this guy caused her so much pain. And yet she forgave. And yet she loved him again. And yet she married him. And that's a lesson for most of us, or all of us here tonight. We shouldn't close the door on forgiveness. We shouldn't close the door on second chances. We shouldn't close the door, especially when we realize that this person was young and foolish, but we had grown older now, and the person had learned his lesson and is willing to make amends. That is what the lesson from Genesis 43 is to us tonight, that we should consider forgiving, forgetting, and reconciliation. It is part of our Christian duty. I believe that the class has been of help and of blessing to us. If that is true, I'd like somebody to shout, glory!
Glory!
Hallelujah. See you guys tomorrow.